An extraordinary spray from the West Australian Premier has ended a tense meeting between state leaders and the Prime Minister in Canberra. The row over GST funding overshadowed the COAG talks, but there was meaningful progress on how to tackle domestic violence and the country's growing ice problem.
Another beautiful day.
It was a miserable morning.
This is the Canberra I know and remember.
And the gloom got worse by early afternoon.
I'm angry. You can understand why West Australians are angry. I've got to say, I was disappointed in my state colleagues.
Chilly and wet, dripping with bitterness.
Western Australia whinge about the GST and we're all meant to, jump up and down, shock and horror.
WA out in the cold, with every state and territory turning their backs on its plea for more GST funding at their expense.
It's a no-brainer. It should be a very short conversation.
Western Australia cannot be hit anymore. Stop trying to push us even further down.
All state treasurers except WA signed a letter opposing any special deal, saying it's a federal issue and not, as Tony Abbott said, a state matter.
Well, colleagues, welcome to Canberra.
The Prime Minister wanted to focus on national security, the ice epidemic and domestic violence. And despite the GST division,
we've got our particular problems, but today we wrestle with the national problems.
There was agreement to solve them.
There's an abundance of goodwill. May the work begin.
It ended without a deal for WA, but they'll consider long-term reform to the GST carve-up and some form of short-term help.
There will be no free gifts for any state or territory.
The post-meeting news conference was going so well, even some smiles and pleasantries, but enter Colin Barnett, and things got awkward very quickly.
I must have been at a different meeting, not quite my recollection. The elephant in the room is GST, and that's what this COAG has been significantly about.
And he lined up each and every one of his fellow premiers.
I don't know how we're going to reform Australia and modernise it when we can't tackle an issue which is so inequitable.
They did, though, agree to a national counter-terrorism strategy and to recognise and enforce domestic violence orders across borders.
We have had enough, that this is something that must stop.
This is the number one law and order issue in our nation. This is a national emergency.
They'll do this all over again in 2 months at a so-called retreat to discuss reforming the Federation.
We will have to be prepared to leave partisanship at the door.
Good luck with that.
And Lane Cathcart is with us now in the studio. Lane, a very tense day, very tense end to this day, rather.
Yeah, it sure was, Deb. Look, there probably hasn't been that level of bitterness at one of these leaders' meeting, probably not since the change, the way the funding to the states was handed out. But having said that, there was a genuine agreement in the room today to tackle those issues like national security and the very important one of domestic violence. As to the fight over funding, well, that'll probably fester and linger and go to another meeting like that until everyone can agree to a formula that everyone thinks is fair. That may take some talking. Deb.
More on this to come. Lane, thank you.